Hello, today we're going to be having a look at the Sega Saturn Mini. This is one of the mini consoles that seem to be quite popular at the moment, following on from the Mega Drive Mini. So this is a bit of a do-it-yourself kit. This isn't a kit made by Sega or endorsed or anything like that. It's something that's made by, the actual shell's made by BanDai, and it comes under the Best Hit Chronicles series. And there's a board inside that is made by Retro Game Restore. As you can see in the back, you've got a mini HDMI port and an SD card. You've got micro USB for power and a headphone jack. The case, colour-wise, I think it's a fair reproduction, as you can see, compared to the original. The construction of the case is pretty good. I'm quite impressed with the actual, look of the actual Mini. I think it's really, really well made, and two micro USB sockets at the front. So first things first, we've got to assemble the kit, the basic side of the kit. I know some of the bits we're going to leave out, because this is a kit that's been modified. It's not something that's you can buy off a shelf. Just finishing assembling the non-functioning joypad. It is in the style of the original Japanese release, so it's quite cute, and but not functioning. It doesn't plug into the front. Obviously, you have to remove the jack that this would plug into. They've put two micro USB ports in the front instead. So inside the unit, you've got this Retro Game Restore mainboard where the Compute Module 4 clicks into. At the back, you've got like a little daughter board that carries the micro SD. The reproduction of the power supply no longer clicks in because there's nothing to click it into. Obviously, you've replaced the internals of the kit with this main board and the CM4, so that has to be hot glued onto the side of the board. Got two LEDs at the front and USBs there, so that's what's in there basically inside the shell. Had to hot snot a lot of the top components back in though, because obviously there was nothing no longer to support those, so I've had to hot snot that. But from an external point of view, you wouldn't know any difference, so it looks lovely and great with the Virtual Fighter disc. So what you're going to need to get this going, you're going to need the I/O board, the CM4 I/O board, if you haven't got the light. The CM4 light will read from the SD card, whereas the version I've got with the onboard 8GB of eMMC memory needs to boot in a different manner. So obviously I've had to get that I/O board to allow me to program and flash the Raspberry Pi image onto it. This is it trying to boot into its eMMC, but without any image. It just sits there and does nothing. So you plug it in, you run a bit of software called Pi Boot, and that allows you access to the eMMC memory, and therefore you can then flash the Raspberry Pi image onto the built-in storage on the CM4. Once you've got it done, you reboot, and it obviously starts to load into Emulation Station. Once you've loaded up Emulation Station, you're then going to need to put some sort of control in, so I had to buy this little adapter to allow me to transfer ROMs using the keyboard on the controller. I just plugged in an external USB stick and transferred the ROMs over to the Retropie ROMs directory, which obviously allowed me then to select and store all my games on the actual eMMC memory. Once the games are installed, just like a normal Pi, you run a scraper to allow you to bring all the images and stuff like that to populate all of the games that you've put on. So you can just see I've just loaded in the first three games here: Daytona USA, Manx TT and Sega Bomberman. Probably three of my quite favourite games. So the first one we're going to take a look at to see how well this little CM4 board runs is Saturn Bomberman. This is pretty much my favourite version of Bomberman. I think it's really colourful, there's a lot of on-screen activity, it's well populated, and it plays really great. On the CM4 it plays really well. I've got no stuttering issues with this. It loaded in great, played really well, so got no complaints with this type of game. This runs absolutely fine on the CM4. One thing to note with the CM4 is that the Saturn emulation with the Raspberry Pi isn't great. There's still a little way to go. Some of the more demanding titles do struggle, such as Sega Rally, Daytona USA. So those sorts of games, I think the CM4 is going to struggle. And I did try them out, and indeed, they did struggle. So the games that I have tried, I've obviously had to be sensible and use the ROMs that I thought were okay to use, if you know what I mean. Obviously Bomberman, great, absolutely no problems with that. Manx TT, there was a little bit of slowdown on Manx TT, which was a shame because it's one of my favourite games on the Saturn. I really would like to see an official Sega Saturn Mini come out on, into the mainstream, because I think it really would sell. I think using the this Pi 4, it does show that, maybe with a slightly more beefier but horsepower board, Saturn emulation could be quite easily reproduced. So I don't think there's really any reason why Sega couldn't release a something slightly more powerful than the CM4 emulation on the Sega Saturn. Just going to take a look at the Gex just to see what the full motion video side of the CM4, see how well it can handle that. And to be fair, I've not really noticed anything that's a game breaker on this. It's it loaded in the full motion video sequences both from Bomberman and this Gex, absolutely fine. Load times are pretty good. Everything's working really well. Obviously with the EMC memory I've gone with, it was only reason I went with that was because I couldn't get hold of the CM4 Lite. The CM4 Lite accesses the micro SD card directly, so it's a lot easier to load Retropie. It's a lot easier to add storage and change things. Whereas the EMC memory, obviously, you're only stuck in this particular instance with 8 gig. So only reason I did this is because I couldn't get hold of a CM4 Lite. As you know, with the the shortages of stuff, it was really tough to get a CM4. This was the only one I could come across for this project. Okay, Manx TT. Really like this game. It's probably my, next to Daytona USA and Sega Rally, I'd say this is probably one of my top 3 on the Saturn. What would probably quickly come apparent with this is that the sounds aren't quite right and it's quite slow. This game is quite quick to play. There's no major stuttering or the pop-ins, it hasn't been affected. It is a little bit slow now. Whether you could overclock the board to compensate for this and give it a little bit more refresh, get things running a bit smoother, I don't know. I've not had enough time really to play with that, but it runs fairly smooth. There's no hang-ups. It loads in pretty quick, but as you can see, it's just a little bit slower than it should be. I thought this title was quite poignant considering the TT is actually on at the moment, and being a visitor to the TT myself, this game does bring back some memories. There are some standout moments on the track that you can actually recognise. So there we have it. That's the Sega Saturn Mini. Should Sega do one? I think they should. I think it would be a great seller. I'm really pleased with this unit though. It's a stopgap until the main one comes out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again in the next video. Bye for now.